History is about to be made, and I need you to understand something right now. It's worse than you think. Not worse like a recession. Not worse like a bad quarter. Worse, I'm talking about the biggest transfer of wealth and power in the history of this country, happening faster than any of us are prepared for. And almost nobody is talking about the part that actually matters. Everybody wants to talk about AI taking jobs. Fine, that's real, but that's not the story. The story is what happens to the people who don't own anything when the machines start doing the work. I've built companies, I've sold companies, I've sat in rooms with people who move markets, and I'm telling you, the gap between the people who own the technology and the people who use the technology is about to become the defining line of your entire life, not next decade. Now this year, and if you're on the wrong side of that line, no amount of hustle is going to save you, because for the first time in history, hard work alone won't be enough. So stick with me, because I'm going to break down exactly what's coming, why it's different from every other shift we've lived through, and more importantly, exactly what you need to do about it starting today. Before I go any further, subscribe. I'm not asking, I'm telling you, because what I'm about to walk you through is worth more than most people pay for a financial advisor, and I'm giving it to you for free. I've made and lost fortunes learning this stuff the hard way. You don't have to hit subscribe right now so you don't miss what's coming next, because this channel is going to be the one place giving it to you straight while everybody else is either hyping you up or scaring you into clicking. Let's go. Let's start with why this moment is different, because people keep comparing this to other big shifts in history, and they're wrong. When the printing press came out, it took decades to spread. When electricity showed up, it took almost 50 years before most homes had it. The internet. That was fast, but it still took the better part of 15 years to really change how business worked. AI is not doing that. AI is compressing that same amount of change into a handful of years, and in some industries, into months. I've seen companies I'm invested in change their entire workflow in a single quarter because a new model came out that could do the job of 5 people, not eventually, right now. And here's the part that should scare you a little. It's not just replacing simple tasks anymore. It's writing code, doing legal reviews, handling customer service, building financial models. It's doing the kind of white-collar knowledge work that we always told people was the safe path. Go to college, get a degree, get a good stable job. That promise is breaking in real time. And most people haven't even noticed yet because the layoffs haven't shown up in their neighborhood yet. That's the trap. Change like this doesn't announce itself with a press conference. It shows up quietly, company by company, until one day you look up and the job market you knew is gone. I'm not saying this to scare you for views. I'm saying it because I've sat across the table from founders building the tools that are going to do this, and I've watched their valuations go from nothing to billions in 18 months. That money has to come from somewhere. And where it's coming from is the labor that used to be done by people. I've also noticed something else in these conversations that most people never get to hear. The founders themselves aren't talking about whether this changes the job market. They already assume it does. The only debate in those rooms is how fast and which jobs go first, when the people actually building the technology have moved past the question of if and are only arguing about timing. That should tell you everything you need to know about where the rest of us stand. Now let's get into the actual numbers, because I don't want you walking away from this thinking it's just my opinion. Companies right now are running leaner than at any point I've seen in my career. You've got businesses hitting record revenue with fewer employees than they had 3 years ago. That is not normal. In a healthy, growing economy, revenue growth and headcount used to move together. Not anymore. Entry-level hiring. The jobs that used to be the way young people got their foot in the door has dropped hard across finance, law, tech, customer support, all of it. That's not a coincidence. Those are exactly the jobs that are easiest for a language model to eat first because they're repetitive, they're rules-based, and they don't require decades of judgment. Meanwhile, look at where the money is actually flowing. Trillions of dollars in capital expenditures going into data centers, chips, and infrastructure. Trillions. Think about what that tells you. It tells you the smartest, most well-capitalized people in the world are betting everything on replacing human labor with computers. And they are not betting small. When the people with the most money and the most information make a bet that size, you don't sit there and argue with the trend. You pay attention to it. And I've never once in my career seen this much capital chase one single shift at the same time. Not during the dot-com years, not during mobile, not during cloud. This is bigger and it's moving faster, and the people telling you it's just hype are the same people who told you the internet was a fad. And here's a number that should stick with you. Look at how many new graduates are struggling to find their first job compared to 5 years ago, even in fields that used to guarantee decent starting salaries. That is a leading indicator, not a coincidence. When the bottom rung of the career ladder starts disappearing first, that's usually a sign the rest of the ladder isn't far behind. So here's why it's actually worse than most people think. And this is the part that nobody wants to say out loud. It's not just about jobs disappearing. It's about who captures the value when they do. In the past, when technology made a company more efficient, some of that value flowed back to workers through wages, and some of it flowed to owners through profit. That balance, even when it was unfair, still existed. What's different this time is the value isn't splitting anymore. It's concentrating. A small number of companies that own the models, the chips, and the infrastructure are capturing a massive share of the value being created, while the people whose jobs are being automated get almost none of it. That is not a talking point. That's just math. Look at profit margins at the companies leading this shift compared to the number of people they actually employ relative to their size. It's a fraction of what a company that size used to employ. So the pie is growing. I actually agree with that part. The pie is genuinely getting bigger because AI makes things cheaper and unlocks new stuff we couldn't do before. But here's the problem. The slice going to regular working people isn't growing with it. It's shrinking. And if you're not positioned as an owner, as someone with equity, with a stake in the business is actually building or using this technology well, you are going to watch that pie grow bigger and bigger while your slice gets smaller and smaller. That is the actual crisis. Not robots taking your job in some sci-fi sense, a quiet redistribution of who gets rich off of progress happening right now. Mostly invisible to the people it's happening to, and what makes this version worse than every previous version of this same story is that it's happening across every industry at once instead of one sector at a time. Manufacturing automation hit factory towns over decades. This is hitting lawyers, accountants, coders, marketers, analysts, and customer service reps all in the same few years. There's no single community absorbing the shock while everyone else watches from a safe distance. This time, almost nobody gets to watch from a safe distance. I want to be real with you about something else too, because I don't sugarcoat things for anybody. This isn't going to hit everyone the same way. If you're already wealthy, if you already own stock, if you already own a business, this entire shift makes you richer. Your companies get more efficient. Your margins go up. Your portfolio benefits from every single headline that scares regular people. I've lived this personally. Every time the market panics about something, if you own real assets, you tend to come out fine, and usually better than fine. But if your entire net worth is your paycheck, if you don't own anything beyond a checking account, this shift is coming for you, and it doesn't care how hard you work. I grew up without money. I know what it's like to not have a safety net. And what worries me the most watching this play out is that the people with the least cushion are the ones most exposed to a labor market that is about to get more volatile than it's been in generations. We are heading into a period where the value of pure labor, just showing up and doing a task, is going to keep dropping while the value of owning productive assets keeps climbing. That gap is the whole ballgame. History has made this shift before, from farms to factories, from factories to offices. Every single time, the people who owned something on the other side of the transition ended up fine. And the people who only had their labor to sell got squeezed until they adapted or got left behind. The difference now is speed. Those earlier transitions gave people a generation to adjust. This one is giving people a few years, maybe less. And I want to be honest about the part that keeps me up at night. It's not just individuals who are exposed here. It's entire towns and regions built around one or two industries that are about to get hit at the same time. Their local job market has nothing else to absorb them. We saw what happened to manufacturing towns when factories left. Now imagine that same story playing out in office parks and business districts, except it happens in a fraction of the time with a fraction of the warning. Let me give you a real-world example of how this plays out, because I don't want this to stay abstract. Think about customer service. For decades, that was one of the most reliable entry points into the working world. You didn't need a degree, you needed to be reliable and good with people. And there were millions of those jobs across every industry. Right now, companies are quietly crowding more and more of those conversations through AI systems that can handle the vast majority of customer questions without a human ever touching them. The humans that are left aren't doing the same job at a smaller scale. They're doing a completely different job, managing the AI, handling the exceptions the AI can't solve. And there are far fewer of those roles than there used to be of the original job. Now take that same pattern and run it across paralegals doing document review, junior analysts building spreadsheets, coders writing boilerplate code, marketers writing basic copy, and you start to see the actual shape of what's happening. It's not one industry getting hit. It's the entry-level layer getting stripped out of almost every industry at the same time, which is exactly why I keep coming back to this point. This isn't a story about one sector having a rough year. It's a structural change in how the entire economy hires people, and structural changes don't reverse themselves once the technology behind them keeps getting cheaper and more capable every single quarter. I also want to address the people watching this who think I'm just talking about young people trying to break into the workforce. I'm not. If you're 45 years old with 15 years of experience in a role that involves a lot of repeatable analysis, research, or documentation, you are just as exposed as somebody in their first job, maybe more, because you've spent your whole career building depth in exactly the kind of work these tools are best at automating. I've talked to executives who are quietly restructuring entire departments around smaller teams that use AI heavily, and the people getting let go in those restructurings are not the newest hires. They're often mid-career professionals whose entire skill set was built around doing the thing that just became 10 times cheaper to do with software. Experience used to be the thing that protected you. In this shift, experience in the wrong kind of work doesn't protect you at all. It just means you built a bigger career on top of a foundation that's now moving under your feet. That's a hard thing to hear if you've spent 20 years doing everything right by the old rules. But I'd rather you hear it from me now, with time to actually do something about it, than hear it from a layoff notice with no warning at all. So what do you actually do about this? I'm not going to sit here and just scare you and leave you hanging, because that's not what I do. First thing, and I cannot say this enough, you need to become an owner, not just an earner. That doesn't mean you need to start the next billion-dollar company tomorrow. It means every extra dollar you have needs to be going toward owning something, whether that's shares in real businesses, a stake in a small business you help run, real estate, anything that produces value while you sleep. If 100% of your income depends on you personally showing up and doing a task, you are exposed, period. Second, get close to the technology instead of running from it. I see so many people treating AI like it's the enemy. Wrong move. The people who are going to win the next 10 years are not the people competing against AI. They're the people using it to do the work of 5 or 10 people themselves. Learn the tools, actually use them in your work every single day. Become the person in your company who can do more with AI than anyone else, because that person becomes incredibly valuable while everyone standing still becomes replaceable. Third, and this is something people hate hearing, stop chasing stability and start chasing leverage. A stable job that doesn't teach you anything new, that doesn't give you equity, that doesn't build a skill machines can't easily copy. That job is not actually safe anymore, even if it feels safe today. I'd rather you take a slightly riskier path that builds ownership and skill than a comfortable path that quietly erodes underneath you. Fourth, build multiple streams of value, not multiple streams of just income. A side hustle that's just more of your time for more money doesn't fix the core problem. You need streams that don't require you to personally be there every single hour to produce value. That's the actual difference between being an earner and being an owner. And fifth, start treating your own skill set the same way you'd treat a company's product line. Ask yourself honestly, which parts of what you do are commodity work that a tool could replace tomorrow, and which parts require judgment, relationships, and taste that are much harder to automate. Then spend your energy doubling down on the second category, because that's where your actual value is going to live over the next decade. Now let's talk about where the real opportunity is sitting. Because I promised you this video wasn't just doom and gloom, and I meant it. Every major shift in history that displaced labor also created entirely new categories of wealth for the deck. People paying attention early, the people who saw the shift from factories to offices got rich building the tools that ran those offices. The people who saw the internet coming didn't panic about newspapers dying. They built the platforms that replaced them. Right now, the biggest opportunities are not necessarily in the flashy AI model companies everybody's already piled into. It's in the infrastructure underneath it, the energy needed to power all these data centers, the tools that help small businesses actually implement this technology without a huge engineering team, the training and education that helps regular workers cross the gap from where they are to where they need to be. Somebody is going to build the businesses that help the other 90% of the workforce adapt to this shift. And whoever does that is going to build a massive company doing it, because the demand for that is about to explode. If I was starting from zero today, that's exactly where I'd be looking. Not at the shiniest new model, but at the unglamorous picks and shovels that help regular people and regular businesses actually survive and thrive through this transition. That is where the next generation of millionaires and billionaires gets built quietly, while everyone else is arguing on television about whether this is all a bubble. Small business owners in particular have a real edge here that nobody talks about enough. A giant corporation has layers of bureaucracy that slow down how fast it can actually adopt new tools. A single person running their own shop can implement something new this afternoon and see the results by next week. That speed advantage is enormous, and it's sitting right in front of anyone willing to actually use it instead of just reading headlines about it. I also want to hit something people get wrong constantly, which is timing. People love to say, well, if this is really happening, why hasn't it already destroyed the economy? Here's the answer. Big shifts like this don't move in a straight line, they move in waves. And right now we are still early in the wave, even though it feels like it's already everywhere. The infrastructure being built today, the capital being spent today, that is setting up the next several years, not just the next few months. So if you're watching this thinking, well, I don't see it in my industry yet, so I've got time, you need to flip that thinking around completely. The fact that you don't see it yet is exactly why you have a window right now to position yourself before it becomes obvious to everybody else. By the time something is obvious to the entire market, the easy money and the easy positioning is already gone. That's true in investing, and it's true in your career. The people who win big are never the people who wait for certainty. They're the people who move while it's still uncomfortable and unclear, because that discomfort is exactly what keeps most people on the sidelines. I've made almost every major decision in my career before it felt safe to make it. Not because I love risk, but because by the time a decision feels completely safe, everyone else has already made it too, and the upside is gone. So here's my challenge to you, and I want you to actually do this, not just nod along and close the video this week. I want you to do one thing that moves you from being purely an earner to starting to become an owner, even in a small way. That could mean opening a brokerage account and buying your first shares in a real business if you haven't already. That could mean spending real time this week actually learning to use an AI tool inside your current job instead of avoiding it. That could mean having an honest conversation with yourself about whether the safe path you're on is actually safe or whether it just feels safe because it hasn't changed yet. History is being made right now, and most people are going to look back on this exact moment and wish they had moved earlier. I don't want that to be you. I've watched fortunes get made and lost by people who either saw the shift coming and acted or saw it coming and froze. Don't freeze. You don't need to have it all figured out today. You just need to take the first step, drop a comment telling me the one thing you're going to do this week to start owning instead of just earning. I read every single one. And if this video actually gave you something real to think about, make sure you're subscribed because we are just getting started and I am not going to stop telling you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. I'll see you in the next one.